And talking about the EFF taking the law into their own hands, joining us in studio is Marius Tutoi. He is the criminal attorney, and advocate Zahir Omar, constitutional lawyer, Sfiso Mahlango, political analyst. Gentlemen, good evening and thanks for joining us. And you at home, the lines are open 011-542-2186. And I must hasten to say, as always, the EFF had been invited for the debate, but you know, the love-hate relationship that we enjoy. So getting into the discussion, Marius, I just want to deal with the issue of what the law says around Section 1 offences that may permit citizens to conduct a citizen's arrest.
I think the first thing we have to understand is that most of the serious offences are captured in Schedule 1. And that means basically that a private person could effect an arrest perpetrated in his presence, or if he has a reasonable suspicion that this person has perpetrated this offence. So it's not just a question of me sitting here and listening on the radio and hearing a person having a complaint about a possible offence that was committed, and now I decide to act on his behalf and go and effect a citizen's arrest. That was never the intention of legislator. The legislator specifically wanted the situation where I see an offence perpetrated against my person or goods, or I see an offence perpetrated and I assist in arresting the person and then hand him over to the cops. It's not there to encourage people to now suddenly become a rogue police force.
Yeah, but I mean, it also, I mean, the story in itself has the potential of inciting violence and high emotions, at least, where the farm worker was shot in the leg by the farmer who accused him of stealing firewood from his premises. So in that case, when you call for a citizen's arrest as a political party, what is especially with the tonality, I mean, what is the underlying message that one can interpret this to mean?
Well, good evening, Cindy, and good evening to the viewers at home. It is also important to mention that whilst they made a valid point to say the acts of racism should be acted against, but we don't know if this was a direct case of racism because a man was shot by a farmer. What we should also bear in mind is that when one political leader calls for a citizen's arrest, it also means that anybody can say, I'm arresting anybody for anything. It means that the members of the Freedom Front Plus can go and say they want to arrest Mr. Julius Malema. Mr. Julius Malema can go and want to arrest Johan Rupert, and so on. It can go on and on. But we must appreciate the Constitution and appreciate the rule of law. I think what arose this case and what brought it to flames, South Africa saying brought it to cougar today. What brought this case to flames is that the police did not act in time, and this case has not seen the courtroom yet. And so it is worth allowing, you know, the law to take its course. And you know that the hands and the feet of the law are very slow, and often we don't get the speedy reaction that you want from the law, because the law should not move emotionally. It must move within the jurisdiction of the law and via the rules and regulations of the judiciary. So the EFF felt that the courts of this country did not move in time, and they're calling for a citizen's arrest.
Okay, let's get Mr. or Advocate Omar. Thanks again for joining us. Just based on the legality of the call for a citizen's arrest, that can you say such things out of frustration with the slow turn of the judicial system or justice, particularly as a political party that has a youth following? What is the danger of potential vigilantism or even encouraging violence?
Let's analyze this very carefully. Let's examine the real motive of the EFF. Arrest is a method to secure the attendance of an accused at court. There are three other methods. There is a summons, there is warning, and then there is arrest. Now, if a person is arrested, if the most harsh method is used to secure the attendance of a person in court to answer criminal charges, and other less harsh methods are available, then the police are acting unlawfully. Now, to make a call for a citizen's arrest, to insist that fellow citizens effect an arrest, is a call to incite violence. It is a call towards vigilantism. It's a call towards anarchy. Now, what is the real motive? Now, let me tell your viewers what the real motive here is. The DA is working together with the EFF. The EFF is being used as a decoy by the DA to render our country ungovernable. The aim by the EFF is to lay a fertile foundation for the DA to take control of the levers of government so that the DA can continue ruling this country.
Advocate
we'll go
Omar,
back to white rule.
Sorry,
the
Advocate,
EFF have not once condemned.
Yes, Advocate Omar, just before we get carried away, I just want to deal with the issue around the legality and whether there was a law by just pronouncing on a citizen's arrest, regardless of the circumstances of the case or the merit and demerit thereof, whether it is a legal, well, I suppose there's a freedom of speech, but whether this is something that that should be encouraged or rather condemned.
It shouldn't be encouraged, of course. But of course, we have freedom of speech, but that doesn't mean to say that I can incite violence with my freedom of speech, because then I'm not exercising my freedom of speech. But I think there's an important factor that Mr. Umar has also touched on, is the grounds or the basis upon which an arrest could be effected. I mean, there's, of course, many methods of securing attendance of the accused, but also you have to remember, in these circumstances, a number of offences could have been applicable. We could have had a negligent discharge of a firearm resulting in injury to a person, which is not a Schedule 1 offence, which could not be arrested by a private person. We could have a scenario where he was the person perpetrating the offence, he fled, and he then attempted to arrest the person, and he exceeded the boundaries of his rights in order to effect an arrest. So there's a number of offences that could be applicable. Attempted murder is not necessarily the only inference that you can draw from these facts, and that's why it's so important that you lay a criminal charge, that the police have the opportunity, trained policemen have the opportunity of perusing the facts and taking it to a prosecutor to make an informed decision of the method, how the person should be brought to court.
So you're saying that the announcement, that the EFF will make a citizen's arrest if the police do not act in this Limpopo case is intentional in that, there's obviously a level of responsibility that you need to back up with your words, for a lack of a better phrase, that when you say these things, having full cognizance of what the law says, what is the intention then?
I think the point of a citizen's arrest basically means if there is a news article on someone having committed an atrocious crime or a murder, and I see that person, at the mall, I can inform security workers to say that this individual is here, or I've seen the serial killer. Or if you see someone, steal a chicken or whatever, and then you can apprehend them and keep them until the police come. That is perhaps the official definition of a citizen's arrest. But you cannot arrest someone. I cannot go and arrest perhaps people who had something to do with apartheid crimes. If you have reported a matter to the police, it is now in the police's hands to deal with. They must investigate and take it to court. It is then the court that will decide. But also this is marred with political intention over wanting to give this man justice. So you remember that political parties often want to muzzle, and this is also grandstanding because it will get an audience to this courtroom if this goes to court, and the EFF truck will be there, and there'll be grand speeches and performances. So this is also to do with campaigning and not just to deal with the arms of a law or the legal fraternement to how we can deal with crimes in this country. It has nothing to do with that, in fact.
Let's just test that theory with Advocate Omar. As Sfiso Mahlangu was saying, that is grandstanding. Where do we make that distinction, whether this was indeed justice for the affected farm worker, whether there was incidents of racism, and whether he was unfairly treated by the farmer? How do we make that distinction, Advocate Omar?
Look, the EFF have competent senior counsel who guide them. If their real intention is to empower our people with knowledge, then they will not promote ignorance amongst our people. The matter is with the police. Prima facie, shooting at a person for picking up wood from a farm is vicious. It indeed is prima facie satisfies the elements of the crime of attempted murder. That is indeed so. But the arrest, Advocate Sean Abrams, the head of the NPA, must educate our prosecutors, and our police must be educated as to when they may arrest, when they could summons the accused to court, and when they should warn. If this white farmer is capable or is willing to surrender himself to the law, then he must be forthwith warned to come to court or summoned to come to court. But to use this sad occasion as political grandstanding, as the EFF is doing, is exposing the motives of the EFF. The one motive of the EFF is not to uplift our people with knowledge, but to lay the foundations for a future white government to rule our country. Our youth should bear this in mind.
All right, but Marius, can we just give a benefit of the doubt of EFF supporters and the youth that perhaps this is not something that they may necessarily literally translate into EFF members taking action, or the fact that it was an opportune moment to, again, incite that sense of awareness in terms of the injustices that farm workers may experience.
And I've got no problem with the fact that they want to address the injustices. And if this is one of those examples, of course, we should make a point to mention it to the public. But I think one should really tread carefully when it comes to calling in general upon people to now effect arrests where the police are slow in effecting an arrest. Because this now leads to people, on a rogue basis, applying the law as they deem fit. And that could lead to absolute anarchy. There's no doubt about that. So I do believe that it's something one should really be cautious of. And our Supreme Court of Appeal, of course, has said when a private person effects an arrest, it must be done with extreme circumspect and with extreme caution. So it's not something that the person should just exercise willy-nilly on the spur of the moment. You should really make sure that you've got the rights. Because remember, we've got a constitution. And that means any arrested person has got constitutional rights. And if I go and unlawfully arrest a person where there were other means to take him to court, of course, I'm acting unlawfully and I open myself up to a civil suit for damages.
Yeah, but the whole talk and narrative around radicalism, because, the status quo has remained as it is, and the fact that if the law or government doesn't reform policies, then the EFF will do something about it, or other political parties also threaten the same. Then can we take it in that vein, that we just find ourselves in an environment that has that kind of energy, that speaks of radicalism, and the other one wants to upstage another one to show exactly how you have balls of steel, as it were?
That's very true. There are a few people in this country I think I would like to arrest. It might be difficult getting to Stellenbosch and saying, well, I want to arrest you, let's go and lock you up. But it doesn't work that way. If one arrests or makes a citizen's arrest for that matter, where will you keep that individual? We must allow the Constitution of the Republic to reign above all. But that being said, I think also the delay in our mechanisms of state, issues of litigation go forever in this country. There's often claims of women going to police stations and laying charges of rape, but those things are not investigated speedily. They aren't taken to book. And perhaps it is this voice that people say, well, I know where he lives, I'm going to take him myself. I know where he stays, I'm going to arrest him. And perhaps it is in that mindset that people can call for a citizen's arrest. But that's an entirely different example to this one. Here, a case has been opened. It is perhaps to familiarize ourselves with the law and to agitate those who represent us in the courtrooms to say, a case has been opened. Let us now allow the law to take its course, because you can't report a case and say to the police, well, arrest this person and take them to court, and on the other hand I want to arrest them myself and then hope that I have a courtroom and play judge. It doesn't work that way.
You could only imagine, Cindy, if suddenly the EFF calls for citizen arrest of our president, the anarchy that would exist in attempting that arrest. So the difficulty is we have mechanisms in place. We have a police force in place. Yes, they might be inept sometimes. They might be inefficient in what they do. But we do have them in place, and there's a chain of command. If you don't have satisfaction with a police official, you go to his commander. And if you're not happy there, you go to provincial. And you go to the media. So there are means of attracting attention to your matter.
Yeah.
But exercising your own rights should be cautiously done so.
And the beauty of South Africa, we all have equal rights and also equal responsibilities. Now, Advocate Omar, you're saying that it's inappropriate, irresponsible for the EFF to call for a citizen's arrest, considering that there is a case already in place. Yes, the law may be slow, but don't you think that this also feeds into their radicalism, nuance and mandate, that this essentially is about politics and very little justice?
Look, justice delayed is justice denied. The proper method to force the police to do their work is by bringing a semi-urgent application to the High Court to ask the court to order the police and the prosecuting authorities to prosecute this white farmer who shot at a helpless young boy picking up wood. That's number one. Number two, the EFF, Sean Abrams, the head of the National Director of Public Prosecutions, must now clearly listen to what I'm saying. He must now take measures to criminally charge members of the EFF who are inciting violence or inciting anarchy. These utterances satisfy the crime of incitement. For example, Malema with a tie is a sign of enslavement to the white mentality with his red tie. Calling for taking over land means nothing. Land means nothing to my people without money. We need access to the banks. We need access to our minerals to be able to live on the land like human beings. Let us not be fooled by Malema's calls. Malema, I appeal to you, stop it. Because I myself will have you charged and prosecuted under the Writers' Assemblies Act for incitement. Stop it.
All right, Advocate Omar, I'm sure it's your constitutional right to also lay charges, and I think we're going to spend the better part of this year in courts. But the rights of Mr. Tolam in this case, who's the farm owner who had allegedly shot the farm worker, etc. If there's a further call over and above the initial arrest and having a charge against him formally, how are his rights infringed in this case?
Well, of course, he has the constitutional rights to be arrested, to be taken to a court within 48 hours, to be charged, to be appraised of his rights. So he has constitutional rights that must be adhered to. But I agree with Mr. Umar in the sense that, you know, justice delayed is always justice denied. And the police should really see this as a wake-up call to act speedily. If they've got a prima facie case on paper implicating the farmer, they should effect an arrest immediately. Because if they don't, it does also lead to the public at large losing faith in their police officials. So it's important that they act speedily and not drag their feet. But similarly, if this is one of those cases which in the public domain is different to what's contained in the docket, let's assume in the docket it's a vastly different set of facts, then of course we must allow the police to properly investigate the matter to make sure they do have an attempted murder case or some other offence that they can deal with.
Yeah. The question also, I think, should really be asked. If political parties or members of the public start arresting people, where are you going to keep them? Because you don't have the mechanisms to detain people and to officially or formally charge people. And we don't have courtrooms. So citizen's arrest is good in the sense that if I see someone try to break in your house, and though this is not advised, and I can apprehend them and catch them, that's good. Or I should call other neighbors or call the police. That's good for social cohesion and for, you know, the rule of law. But I cannot mobilize society to say, let's get that person out. So they can go and walk into that farm and catch this man. And what are they going to do with him? Because he's also protected by his constitutional right to be innocent until proven guilty. And they don't have a courtroom to then further judge him. It is maybe to say the police should wake up and run the matters of this country faster. But it doesn't help us running to say, I want to arrest you, I want to arrest you. Because in the same breath, people can say they want to arrest Mr. Ndlozi or Mr. Malema on a land grab. You know, and so the head bites the tail. It's always an issue. All
right, just concluding words there from you, Maurice, as we wrap up.
I believe it's really important that we don't go and incite violence and don't promote the public at large to take the law into their own hands. But at the same token, it's critical that the public at large understand that they do have rights. And those rights do entitle them to effect an arrest if the person has perpetrated an offence in their presence to do so. But the purpose of the arrest is not a punishment. You are not the judge, jury and executioner. The only reason why you effect an arrest is to hand him over to the police so that he can be dealt with by our court system. That is the purpose of it ultimately.
All right.